Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. In today's episode, we got a fun topic. It's how to find success and balance as a mompreneur. But I have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of this advice is going to be practical for all of us, whether you're a mom, a dad, maybe not a parent. If you're not a parent, enjoy the peace and quiet while it lasts. That's pro tip, me to you. But anyway, Bethany Meadows, welcome to the show. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.
So I am a parent. I am not a mom. If you're watching or listening, you should be able to tell that. But Bethany, this is an interesting topic of finding success and balance as a mompreneur. Where does this come from? You probably have a very interesting backstory here.
Yeah, as most things do, they're kind of born out of our own stories, right? So in 2008, I started my business. At the time, I had just come out of a divorce. I had 5 kids, and they were teenage years, and I was homeschooling. And I wanted to continue homeschooling them and get them through high school. So the business became a solution to that. I called it chasing the mortgage, every month. And it was a challenging time. It was a season that I look back kind of in a bittersweet way. It was hard, but it's worth it when you get through it. And I had to come up with a lot of systems and processes and really just define my life very intentionally in order to balance that without losing my mind or crashing and burning, neither of which would have been good. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think a lot of people can relate to that too, whether it's, that's a very extreme situation. And I can't even imagine what that was like. But even if you have no kids, but you have 5 businesses and one's crashing, like there's an example of there's some immediate chaos that you may not have predicted or been prepared for. It doesn't matter what the situation is you find yourself in. For you at that time, what did you do that enabled you to get a hold on both being a mom to 5 kids and also creating, sustaining, and growing a business?
Yeah, well, life happens, right? It happens to everyone. And that was my life happens moment. And I've met so many mompreneurs, entrepreneurs. Maybe they have a spouse who's sick, or is struggling in some way, or if their marriage is struggling. That's really hard to keep your mind focused on moving your business forward when it feels like the rest of your life is falling apart. So part of my journey was just taking it one step at a time, one day at a time. I think when you're in the midst of all of that, it can get overwhelming really quickly. So for me, it was just like, I'm not going to worry about tomorrow right now. I'm just going to worry about getting to the end of the day. And if I can accomplish that, that's success for me. I think sometimes we define success by what we see other people doing. Social media is terrible for that, right? We see everybody's good day and compare it to our worst day. And that's just going to make you feel overwhelmed. It's going to make you feel like you're losing. But honestly, for me, that was the focus, was if I can get to the end of the day, my kids are happy, healthy, educated, we have food on the table, that is a successful day. And then I'll worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will be another day to deal with then. And the other thing that I really learned in that experience was kind of in retrospect, I got very isolated because I was so focused on these, just surviving the situation, that I really kind of cut people out because I was like, I don't have time. I don't have time for networking. I don't have time for girlfriends. I don't have time for socializing or whatever it was in my mind. But the truth of the matter is, you need your tribe. you need a network of people around you to help support you and get you through. And that would have been a lot easier for me if I had allowed that to happen. I remember a neighbor coming over one day, knocking on the door, and I had never spoken to them since they had moved in. So I didn't really know them at all, but they had noticed that I had leaves, a lot of leaves. They weren't getting cleaned up, and they had a company come in and do their leaves. And so they knocked on the door and they said, we just wanted to bless you by taking care of your leaves for you. And I burst into tears, which I'm not a crier, but in that moment, it was like, I just so overwhelmed by the kindness of these people that I didn't even know. And just, just that realization that that one kind deed that they did really had an impact on me. So that was it. One day at a time, and build a tribe. Let people help you. Don't be so full of pride that you don't let people in. Because, it's for the, in my situation, if I had done that, my kids would have been better off. I would have been less stressed. I would have been a better mom or whatever. Right. So just let people in, let people help you.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful example. I love that you told that story, and it's the little things too that you can do for other people. You can, if you notice someone who you were in touch with has disappeared, so to speak, from social media, like, you could reach out and just say hey and check in on them. That's kind of the example, the leaf example, right? But the other side of that is taking it day by day. I'm curious how you balance that with, did you have a long-term vision? Because it's one thing to put your head down and just say, like, okay, it is today, I'm not worried about tomorrow. But there's also immense value in having at least a direction where you personally are going, where you want to take your business. So how did you balance that? Or was it really like, whenever I can pick my head up for more than 5 minutes, then I will look
That's
forward?
a really interesting question because, life happens, but also the world happens. And so
Mhm.
if you look at entrepreneurs right now, the world is changing. We have a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what a year from now is going to look like. So it can be really hard to even set goals and establish planning and things like that. I mean, when we do marketing plans now in our agency, they're 90-day marketing plans, and we review them every 30 days.
Yeah.
We used to build 5-year and 10-year marketing plans way back in the day. We
Back
can
in the
never
good old
do
days.
that now because technology is going to be completely different. The consumers' attitudes and behaviors are going to be completely different. And the same thing about that situation. I really couldn't plan a 5-year plan. It was, I need to get these kids through high school. And once they graduate, I can think about what that's going to look like for me. So for me, it was like, I think you got to be flexible enough that your plans can evolve and change and bend and twist based on what's going on around you and the world around you and the marketplace and everything else that's going on. I also say too, when things change, they create gaps, and gaps to me are opportunities. So like COVID happened. The companies that survived COVID were the ones who were able to identify new gaps, new opportunities that they could go fill. They could fill that gap. They could solve that problem, right? Because the market shifted. So that's a big lesson to learn in today's world as an entrepreneur is don't be scared of change. When you see change happening, lean into it, study it, research it, and figure out how you can solve the problem that change is creating in the marketplace. And as long as it, of course, aligns with your brand and your mission. But that's the way for longevity now. We can't just put a shingle out and expect to do business the same way for 20 years. That's not the reality of where we're at.
It'd be so much better if it was, though. How great would that be?
I mean,
It does.
that was 30 years ago.
I
You
know. I
did
know.
that, right? I can remember when I started the agency, I was working with people who like, oh, the only thing I've ever done is TV spots. Like what local businesses very few are doing that anymore. So it's just it's an interesting new world, and we've got to keep up with the technology because that's having a big impact on how we do business. AI is going to be a big factor for many people. But it's not just AI, it's just as things shift in the marketplace. The real estate market goes up and that goes down. Interest rates goes up and they go down. So, I mean, there's always these fluctuations that are happening that can trickle down effect to our business. So it's just having a better awareness and understanding of how these things impact us and where the opportunities are being created as a result.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good message to lean into also because it's AI is a name of a change. It's a name of a technology. It's not new. I mean, technology's been
Right,
improving. Think about how horses felt when cars were invented. First of all, they were probably very happy, but people who had horse stables and managed horses and all this other stuff, like they were probably pissed, right? But
right.
this has been happening since the
Blacksmiths.
beginning of time.
Yeah,
Exactly. So, it's just people get so easily distracted, and your message is the opposite. Is like it just stay the course, find a way around it, find the opportunity, and that's entrepreneurship 101 at its core. So we have
right.
to lean back into that. But for
Well, it's
you
a
and your
mindset shift, right? And
yeah,
as if we self-awareness is huge. And so if we understand that, one of my big triggers is X, like fear. If you're someone who responds with fear to things, you really need to work on that because you have to push through fear a lot of times as an entrepreneur in order to overcome the obstacle. So if you feel uncertain, or we can have fear of scarcity or we can have fear of winning. Oh, what if I win? What does that look like? Is that going to throw me into a spotlight I don't want to be in? So we're just crazy. Entrepreneurs are just crazy. And mindset really is 90% of our success. So just being self-aware of where our buttons are and addressing them.
yeah, it's part of the human experience, right? We're all a little bit kooky, but that's okay. We're designed that way. So, but for you, I have evidence that you survived that hard time in your life,
I'm still
because you
here.
are here. So that's awesome. But what were some of those other defining moments along the way between 2008 and now? It's a long period of time.
Yeah.
Um, how did you evolve and grow your business and keep it and stay in business? I mean, that's an incredible feat in and of itself. Most don't make it past 5 years. You're at 16 plus. So
Right.
what was that journey for you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It definitely evolved. When I first started, I was in hustle mode. I call it where you're trying to figure out how you can solve problems at that point. So you'll just take whatever project you can get. I'll write you a brochure. I'll do this website. I'll do whatever. And that really became. I realized very quickly that that was exhausting because I was chasing these little projects all over the place. But I also noticed that a lot of the same customers were coming back to me and saying, hey, with this repeated requests. So I thought, what if I put them on a retainer and, sold them basically a consistent number of hours every month. And so they would know what they would be paying so they can budget for it. I would know what I'd be making so I can budget for that. And so we started with, I think our minimum retainer was like $500 or something at the time, like, back 16 years ago. And it was like little tiny clients because I was just getting started. And then over the years, our retainers, minimum retainer has grown substantially as we got more experience and worked with larger businesses and bigger projects. So that was one evolution. The second evolution was looking to see how we can niche down with our skills and abilities and experience. So very early on, we worked with a bank, and we worked with them a very long time. And then they were acquired, and then we worked with that bank for a long time, and then they were acquired, and we worked with that bank. So we kind of got all this experience working with the banking world. And we were producing magazines and all kinds of content for them. And so as a result of that, we've created something we call Aligned with VSM, which is a subscription product for highly regulated industries of unlimited design and content. So basically, they pay a monthly fee and they can provide an unlimited number. We just do one at a time, two at a time, three at a time based on their level. So that was one thing, was like, look, that's a very specific niche, but it played into our strengths. So we identified like, this is a strength that not a lot of people have. So how can we use that to make connections on a broader way? Part of the issue too with banks is they don't want you working with their competitors in their marketplace if you're doing strategy. So this is a way to kind of remove that issue. And then COVID happened. And for a lot of businesses, COVID created a lot of shifts in the way they did business, that they never even went back to the old way that they were doing it. I know of, bakeries that were doing make bread at home kits, online baking classes, just out of the box things that they're still doing, because they weren't open. So they were just trying to make enough, generate some revenue to keep the lights on, even though they weren't there. So for us, we were getting a lot of phone calls from businesses that would have been ideal for us early on, but now our minimum retainer was so high that they couldn't afford it. And I was trying to figure out a way that we could offer something that would make sense. So that's when we created the Time to Thrive initiatives, where we provided training with like a library of courses, and we do coaching. We have group coaching programs that help them figure out how to establish goals and plans and so on, and hold them accountable on a quarterly basis and so on. Just some foundational things that we could come and support the smaller emerging businesses. And that was just really more of a passion project for me. I didn't like telling them no, I can't help you. That didn't feel right. So I think, for most businesses, it's really hard to think ahead, like 2 years from now, I'm going to do this, because a lot of what drives us comes to us. Like the opportunity kind of comes to us, or somebody says something, or like people calling me that I would have to say no to. Normally I was like, I don't like that. What could I do to help? So it's just identifying those problems out in the marketplace and figuring out how your business can solve those problems. But one big problem with us as entrepreneurs is we're so full of ideas that we have trouble sometimes maintaining clarity and focus. So that's part of that planning, goal setting process. I call them rabbit chasers, right? That's what we do. And our planning and goal setting is the guardrails that keeps us in our lane. Otherwise, we spot a rabbit and we start chasing that rabbit, and then we see a squirrel go, and then we climb a tree to chase the squirrel, and we're all over the place and we're not accomplishing anything but we're super busy and worn out. So just, that focus and clarity is important. So all of, these changes, these evolutions for us, we didn't do them all at once. They came as a result of seeing a problem that was perfectly aligned with our brand and our mission, and then creating something to solve the problem.
I like that. That's I see that all too often, the squirrel chasers and rabbit chasers, and we've all been guilty of it. So I'm not preaching from a pedestal. Yeah, I know you've done it too, and yeah, it's helping others through that and past that. But it's cool how you found a way to both evolve your business, serve a higher level client, and up level your service too, but still serve the people where you started. I think that's something I see entrepreneurs wrestle with a lot, is as you go further and further in your career, you develop your skill set and your offering, you almost feel bad because it's like, but I used to help those people and now I can't because I charge too much or whatever it may be. So really cool way that you've incorporated both ends of the spectrum.
I think age does that to you too.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'm probably older than you think. And
Guess in the comments down below. How about that? That's a fun exercise for you.
Everybody take a guess. I think, you talk to a lot of people when they hit success, that was they get to a certain success level and then they're like, they want to give back. Like there's this thing that happens when you hit that level that you just like, and in a certain age too, you've got all this wisdom and you just want to share it with people.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Did it start around the age of 52, roughly in that ballpark?
50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's actually, that's been scientifically proven. And if you want to learn more about that, go to right here, humanop.com. That's a window from 52 to 63. It's called the pay it forward interval. And around that time, people they forget about all the other things and the success that they once had. Because you're coming out of an interval where you were incredibly driven and passionate about achieving that success. And now you want to turn around and hand the baton over. So it's funny that it happened to you. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, you start counting down the number of years that you have left that sounded very morbid, but no, I don't mean left, but I mean left to work. I mean, you have a certain number of years that you can be really, productive in the marketplace, and you start counting those years down and you're like, yeah, I need to give some stuff back.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a fact, right? If you start working at the age of 20-ish and you say, okay, 20 to 50 is 30 years, math says I can't be doing this when I'm 80. I don't have another 30 years. So that window, you're right. It is shorter, but it's a biological fact. So there's nothing wrong with that, but it's awesome that you're in that interval and you found a way to package that up and give it back. So if anyone out there listening resonates with this message, wants to learn more, wants to take that wisdom from you and apply it to their life and their business, where should they go?
So the agency is verticalsolutionsmedia.com. But if you're a, solopreneur, emerging entrepreneur, small business owner, then I would go to timetothriveinbusiness.com. And of course, we have also a free assessment there that you can take that really helps you identify the areas, the gaps, as it were, inside your business, that if you tweak those a little bit or shored those up or filled those gaps, you would be able to grow and scale. A lot of times business owners feel like they can if they just go faster doing what they're already doing, that they'll grow. But we need to, do the right things. And so this assessment helps you figure that out. So that's at timetothriveinbusiness.com/grow-assessment.
I love it. Please don't go faster before you fill the gaps.
That is not the balance.
We're both telling you that.
There's no balance in faster. Work smarter, not harder.
Yes, I love it. Thank you so much for being here, Bethany. Wherever you're watching, listening, the links are down below in the show notes and description. Check all that out and help grow your business. Bethany, thanks again. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Harmonious at Lunch podcast. Make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're on, and we want to invite you to join us in the Small Business Success Facebook group, our private group where guests and listeners come together to grow your business. We want impact-driven entrepreneurs who are ready to go to the next level in this group so we can all share ideas, collaborate, and grow our businesses together. Go to whatif.com/group, and we want to invite you to join today. See you on the next episode of Harmonious at Lunch.